The second museum in the United States, only other one than the one in the Midwest. And it's located in the tourist village at the entrance of town. So we want to support you on that, Jim. Let me start this off. You will recall that we had Margaret Dunbar here, and she told us about the research that she had done because her grandfather was this lost child of Bobby Dunbar. It was the first kidnapping internationally advertised. And we had in the early 1900s reporters from not only all over the United States, but from Europe following this. And she decided that she wanted to find out. And then she published this book, and it's called Bobby Dunbar and the Kidnapping That Haunted a Nation, A Case for Solomon. Interestingly enough, it works into today's lecture because the disappearance of that child was solved by DNA. And so we want you to have a copy of this because she, through the use of DNA, was able to solve her family problem. Some of the family did not want her to dig into it, they didn't want to know. And she sent away, she finally got some uncles to agree if they could send samples to a lab to find out was her grandfather the child who had disappeared or not. Half the town said one thing, half said the other. The mother at the time said yes, at the other time she said no. It was supposed to have been kept a secret until the death of these uncles who did not want all of that falderall, as one called it. Unfortunately, one of the technicians was so excited when she did finally get whatever information she found. For those of you who have not read it, I'm not going to give it away. But she calls and blabs it. And so Margaret then was free to not only write the book about it, but to put the conclusion. And this is the book there. So we now have somebody else who is going to help us with DNA. And my friends, let me tell you, some of us here really have some brick walls. And especially some of our African American friends and cousins, because of the lack of records. And the one thing that you can be sure is going to be that DNA. And now that we have people like Shera studying that and making it one of her known attributes, to have the knowledge of it and the application of it, makes it possible for us to turn to people like her for help in overcoming our brick walls. So I hope that you're going to enjoy that. I'm not going to tell you, don't cheat and look at the back.
I won't.
And don't tell. By the way, the library still has a few copies of it that are available. Well, some people are lucky and then others are really lucky. And we're lucky today because we have someone who is from this area, grew up in Kaplan,
Yes.
lives now in Bunkie. I went to school with someone called the monkey from Bunkie. Oh, she was a scream. She was a bit taller than I, and she belonged to a different sorority. And I was talked into playing on the basketball team. And my claim to fame is when I couldn't get around her, I dribbled through her legs. And the shock on her face and everybody else was really something to behold. But that's my sole claim to fame. That was the monkey from Catherine Roussel.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, she's agreed to come and share with us today what she's done. I started fiddling in DNA, and some of you may remember in the early years I gave several talks on that, both to this group and to others. But then I let it go because we've been busy with the library, and that's another story. But once she got interested in that, she went whole hog I mean, she's not only a certified genealogist, but she has taken the trouble to certify herself with the knowledge of DNA. You have a science background?
Actually, I have an executive secretarial degree, and I've been a bookkeeper for 31 years,
Well,
and I hate it.
There's nothing like hating something that makes you get into something that grabs you. Anyway, she has taken this interest, and so it's with great honor and great pleasure that I introduce to you Shera Lapoint, and I'm going to check to see if we own kids with those Lapoints someplace from the Mississippi coast. And she's going to share with us her knowledge of DNA. Right now, I'm going to ask you, I want you to promise that you're going to come back later on when some of us do this, and that you will help us match things up.
Sure,
Because
no problem. That's what I do.
Well, please, it's yours, and Jürgen, you're going to help her with the...
I think we got it going. So, well, thank you very much. It's an honor to be here today, and I'm really excited that you guys asked me. I am from Kaplan originally. My family, both my mother and my father and my husband's family's from there. And my claim to fame, my only claim to fame, is that I learned to walk on the pool table at the Four Corner Bar in Holly Beach, Louisiana. If any of you know where that is. And so my parents told me that story, and I thought that was pretty amazing. And my grandfather had a camp there. And the thing that got me started with genealogy was in 2003. I actually lost my first grandparent. I was very lucky enough to have all four of my grandparents until I was in my 40s. And when my dad's dad died, I realized that I had heard stories all my life about his parents dying when he was young. But I never knew why. I had no idea why they died young or anything really about them other than they were Broussards. My dad couldn't even tell me what my great-grandmother's last name was. So I joined Ancestry at that time, and through death certificates, well, I had heard two stories. My aunt told me that my great-grandmother died after the baby was born. She never got up out the bed, is the story my aunt told me. My sister, who spent a lot of time at my grandparents' house, told me that she heard that they had drowned in a buggy accident in the Vermilion River because they lived in Milton. Death certificates proved that they died of tuberculosis. So that really intrigued me because, you know, you hear all these stories, people talk, but yet until you actually dig into the records, you don't always know the truth. And that's what got me into genealogy. And I believe it was October of 2015, my husband and I were sitting in the living room, and an Ancestry DNA commercial came on. And I said, you know, Paul, I would really love to do that. And he said, well, you know who your family is. And I said, well, I know who my family is. And I know that, you know, my ancestors came from Nova Scotia as far as I know, but I'm still interested. And he said, well, go ahead, order a kit and order one for me too. It was $99 at that time, and I'm here to tell you that is the best $99 I have ever spent in my life, without a doubt. DNA has changed my life. I hear stories, orphan train. I have a daughter-in-law whose great-grandfather came on an orphan train. I had an employee whose grandfather came on an orphan train. And there's just so many things that DNA can help to prove. It's so amazing that DNA proved that my brother-in-law is now my first cousin once removed. So, now it is my brother-in-law married to my husband's sister. Thank goodness he did not marry my sister. Sometimes we do get surprises when we do DNA, but it's all in the family, and we're all good with the story. So you don't always know what DNA will bring. In my life, it's brought great things. It's brought great things. And I'm here to tell you that the most amazing thing that has happened to me is the wonderful people that I have met doing this. Honestly, that has been, whether it's an adoptee, whether it's a genealogy friend that I've known for years, like Carla and I guess it's about 3 years now, and just these people have enriched my life so much, whether it be a DNA match or not. So I say the more the merrier. That doesn't bother me. So DNA does not lie. The only time a DNA test was wrong was when two people tested at the same time and they swapped the vials when they put them in the box, okay? If you get results from an autosomal DNA test, it's your spit or your swab, it will be correct. If you don't want to know the answer, don't ask the question. Mr. Bennett Greenspan is this gentleman right here, and I have always used this quote in my talks, and this is the honest truth. If you don't want to know about secrets in your past or information, do not DNA test. I was lucky enough to meet Mr. Greenspan, and this is Condon and Terry, myself and my husband, and this was actually in Houston on April 15th when they unveiled the ladies who were found in the Texas killing field who were unidentified. In August, on April 15th, they were identified as Donna Gosselin Prudhomme. Donna actually spent time in Ville Platte. She married a guy from Ville Platte. She was in the Texas killing fields unidentified for over 26 years, and DNA identified her and also Lee Cook, who actually was from Tennessee. And I got involved with this case because my father-in-law was one of Donna's closest DNA matches. And I was contacted by the League City Police Department to see if I knew anybody in the family who had disappeared. My father-in-law ends up being a third cousin once removed to Donna. And we were able to, with the collaboration of police records, DNA, actually DNA is what did it. Family tree DNA ran her DNA through their system, and she had an uncle match. And that's what, we were able to identify her. So again, if you don't want to know the answer, don't ask the question, but DNA has done wonderful things. There is a gentleman recently who was a homeless gentleman who was suffering from amnesia. Through an autosomal DNA test, they were able to prove who he was. Unidentified people have been identified. If you follow the news, you'll know that the Golden State Killer was caught using DNA. Most recently, I've been involved in helping bring a case to light in Jeanerette. Baby Jane Doe from Jeanerette was left in a trash can in a barrel at Bob's Car Wash on January 24th of 1994. Her mother has recently been arrested. We don't know the rest of the story. There's a lot more to this story than we actually know. But through a familial DNA match, through the CODIS system, which is the system that police have, baby Jane Doe had a brother who had been arrested, and they were able to prove who the mother was by that. So whether you're just looking for who your great-grandfather was, or you just want to, test for ethnicity results, who has DNA tested in here? I usually ask that question. Awesome. Okay, great. So DNA can help to solve a whole lot of problems. I recently took an online college course where we basically learned to form a plan to figure out how, what connections are. Mr. Bennett Greenspan actually, he DNA tested, or he actually is the one who formed family tree DNA, and his goal was to prove that one Jewish family in one country was the same as a Jewish family in another country. And through DNA, he was able to prove that on his mother's side. So it's amazing what you can actually do with DNA. So genetic genealogy is actually the use of DNA testing in combination with traditional genealogy to find relationships. As a genealogist, we use DNA just like we use any other genealogy tool, a census record, a birth certificate. You have to have records to substantiate the findings. Yes, when you look at the numbers are true. But especially when I search for adoptees, I don't know who their family is. So you have to search through all kinds of records along with the DNA to put the story together. So I don't just use DNA. I use everything that you guys use when you do your genealogy searches. Again, DNA is a genealogical record. It's used in combination with these documentary records, and it relies on database matching. So, where do you DNA test? It really depends on what you're looking for. I'm going to tell you, I've tested at Ancestry, I've tested at Family Tree DNA, I've tested at 23andMe, I've tested at Living DNA. My DNA is probably on every other site that you can put it on, just because it gives me the maximum amount of matches possible. And I like to see how I'm connected to people. And so, because I also do it for adoptees, I've done it for myself also. You need to remember that if you get your results today, it changes, your matches will change every day as people DNA test. So always go back and look at your new matches. Ancestry right now has a database of over 16 million. When I started doing this, it was at a little over 2 million. That's how much it's grown in less than 5 years. Family Tree DNA, I think right now is close to 3 million. I'm not exactly sure what all the other individual numbers are, but over 26 million people have done autosomal DNA testing. And I think that's amazing. A lot of people were like, oh, it's a phase, it's going to go away. It's not going away. It's really not going away. So, people, one thing to remember is that people who DNA test for different reasons. One of the major complaints I hear about is, why don't they answer my message? Why don't they answer my message? Whether it's on Ancestry, and whether you're asking a DNA question or just a question about somebody's tree. I would venture to guess that the majority of people, and my guess would be somewhere between 85 and 90%, if not more, of people DNA test specifically for ethnicity purposes, okay? They are not interested in finding out who their biological family is because they already know. So people get their results, like my uncle. He tested because I asked him to test. He looks at it, he looks at his ethnicity, he'll never look at his test again, okay? So one of the reasons people don't respond is because they never get back on it again. They look at it and they never get back on it. So, but I can also tell you, I received an answered message back from somebody. I messaged them 18 months ago. And one day, lo and behold, I get a message back. So there are also different ways you can contact matches. I was listening to Blaine Bettinger today on the way coming over here. And, you know, if you test at Family Tree DNA, or if you've uploaded to Family Tree DNA, we have to put our emails on there, okay? You have people's emails. On your Ancestry test, people have usernames. Now, unless they're John Smith, lots of times you can Google and you can find information on who they are. So, you know, not everybody wants contact, but oftentimes it'll help you to break down brick walls. One of the most amazing things, actually one of my first probably genealogy friends, when I think about it, was a woman who posted a picture of my husband's grandfather's sister. My husband's grandfather died before he was born in a fire, and so we didn't have a lot of information about his family. And one day I'm working on my tree and I see a picture of a Shera Lapoint, and I'm thinking, my goodness, is this actually his sister? And it was her at about 12 years old. And it had been uploaded by her granddaughter, and she and I are cemetery buddies now. We dig in cemeteries, we enjoy each other's company. Actually, she's the one who even introduced me to Father Hebert books. When I started this, I had no idea who Father Hebert was. And now I can't believe that, and I'm lucky enough to finally have completed my set this year. That's the only thing I would ask for birthdays and anniversaries. And you know, my husband's like, what do you want? Just tell me how many books I can buy this time. So, you know, it's an amazing tool, So we're very, very fortunate to have that. Also to verify family lines. You know, oftentimes a great-grandfather was adopted, or, you know, their parent was adopted, or they were adopted. DNA definitely can prove those family lines. Again, ethnicity purposes. I used to be a nice pretty little pie chart of different things, and now I am 91% French and 9% British English. And I'll be honest with you, that reflects my tree pretty good. I think Ancestry's done a better job at narrowing things down with ethnicity. Looking for biological family. Again, lots of people don't know who their father is, or they're adopted, or a grandparent. Breaking down brick walls. You know, I'm sure a lot of you have probably been in your house and searching for records or searching for information to try to break a brick wall down, and and you come across something, or even in the library, and you hoot and holler. I scared my husband half to death one day because I screamed, and he's like, what in the world happened? I'm like, I found the record I was looking for. So, you know, online, and again, this is one thing that amazes me. I haven't been doing this forever, and I am amazed at people who did genealogical research before the internet came around. It blows my mind how you have to dig, and again, I honestly can say I never would get anywhere. I got so excited when I went to the Abbeville courthouse and found documents of my grandmother's parents when they did the secession and divided up the land. My grandfather ended up owning my grandmother's family's land, and I didn't know why or how. And I know now that he just bought their shares out. But I actually found the documentation. I got so excited, I'm like, I have to have that 40 pages. $40 later, I realized, you know, this stuff costs money. I didn't necessarily have to have it, but it's definitely a document that I enjoy having. But to have to search through courthouses and records, and I know, you know, I have a friend from around Bunkie who, she spends her days doing that in Marksville, in the courthouse and in the archives. She actually just digs for records for other people, and I think that's amazing. It's not something that I've really got into it because of the DNA side, but I'm in awe of people who have done that. Again, provide a genealogical focus for research. My mother was an Abshire. I say it Abshire, some people say Abshire. And my grandfather was the littlest, Cajunest man you have ever seen in your life. He spoke very little English. But Abshire, I always wondered, that's not a Cajun name. Where did they come from? Well, through DNA matches, we've been able to prove that the John, or Jean, as the Catholic French priest wrote it, Abshire, came from Virginia. He was the son of a Peter Ipshire from Virginia. I have DNA matches to Abshires, Ipshires, Abshirs. In Father Abear, it's spelled 19 different ways. So that's one thing that, and that actually is part of the 9% British English that I am, comes from that line. So that's been an amazing thing to me to realize that we have the connection. Before that, all they had was a document saying that he came on a boat from Germany. That's it. People thought he was German. He wasn't German, he was English. So that was awesome to me. And again, you can explore surnames. Through DNA, especially for a male, you know, there's a Y-DNA test you can do, and one case that I worked on was an adoptee who did not know either one of his parents, and we were having trouble on his paternal side. It actually took 2 years. And we finally did a Y-DNA test, hoping to narrow it down, because, you know, sometimes you just get matches and it would be a bunch of Lapoints or things like that. But actually, Robert did a Y-DNA test. His test came back with 61 matches, 60 different surnames, all Polish. There's no way in the world that was ever going to help me. His dad ends up being a Smith. You know, I still don't know the answer to that. So, but oftentimes DNA can help you search surnames. So this is kind of hard to see, but again, the experts with that ethnicity recommend that you take that with a grain of salt. They are very accurate on the continental level, okay? And the majority of us have major European backgrounds, and European countries are very close together. Borders changed, people migrated, wars happened, and so, you know, it's really hard to really pinpoint it to an exact place. And Ancestry now does have the genetic communities, if you've tested at Ancestry. I think those are pretty accurate. You know, I'm pretty heavy Southwest Louisiana Cajun area, and some of the other people that I have, definitely my father-in-law has some Mississippi settlers, and so that's kind of helped to narrow things down here within the states. So it's important when if you're searching for unknown parents or unknown persons, to check the ethnicity. You know, that can help you. You know, sometimes somebody's results come back and their father isn't their father, and they thought they were Jewish, and they come back and they have 50% Italian. That can help lead you to areas, you know, amongst your DNA matches to actually find the information. So this is what a DNA strand looks like. If, you know, we were just talking earlier about in school, what did you learn about DNA? I remembered I love to say the word deoxyribonucleic acid, but I couldn't tell you what really, a whole lot about what it was. So this is very scientific, but the thing that I want to point out to you is that you have 23 chromosomes. The thing that amazes me is that we all are actually about 99.9% the same DNA. It's that 0.1% variations that makes us different. That's pretty amazing to me. So, you know, technically wise, I don't get a whole lot into the technical side of DNA, but it's important to know that the thing that they look for when they do the autosomal testing is those differences. That's what separates us. So, there are 4 types of DNA. For the test that we actually do through Ancestry is called autosomal DNA testing. Autosomal DNA, we have pairs of chromosomes found in the nucleus. You have 23 pairs. You get 1 pair from your mother and 1 pair from your father. And again, the 23rd is the sex chromosome. If you're a female, you're XX. If you're a male, you're XY. And one's from your mother, one's from your father. DNA is inherited or passed down randomly, okay? Before you become a person, your parents' DNA is all jumbled up as their parents' DNA was all jumbled up. So while you will share DNA with a sibling, okay, about 50%, you will have different DNA than your siblings, okay? I can tell you, my sister and I definitely have different DNA. We have different matches, not close matches, we all match the same, close matches, but it's obvious she inherited much more Dortez DNA, which was my mother's line, and I inherited much more Broussard DNA on my father's line. And I can tell that by the numbers, which I'll talk to you in a minute about, that we share DNA with individual people. And again, you know, when you get back to 3rd and 4th cousins, she has matches that I don't have. She actually has more matches than I have. So, you know, if somebody says, well, I don't need to DNA test because my sister DNA tested. That's not necessarily correct. Oftentimes, it can give you more information the more family members that you have test. I 100%, you know, have tested everybody that I can. I'm going to tell you, I have 4 kids and 2 have not DNA tested because I don't know, honestly, I don't know why. I tell my sons, you know, if you think that you're going to DNA test and a child's going to pop up that you don't know about, it's too late. Mom already DNA tested and I'm going to have a grandchild that's going to show up if that's the case. But some people are just private. My daughter, she's a very private person. She works in human resources and she sees what people put out there on the internet, and I'll be honest with you, she's very private, and that's why she hasn't DNA tested. She has nothing against DNA testing and what I do, but it's her own preference, and I have to respect that. Oh wait, I didn't cover the others. So, mtDNA, okay, that is mitochondrial DNA. It is a direct maternal line or your umbilical line. My mother's 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 line, okay? And I was very interested in this because if you are Acadian from Nova Scotia, many of us have what's called a Mother of Acadia, where our mother's line may not have actually, would have been through Acadia, okay? I have a Mother of Acadia, her name's Catherine Bougaret, and she was one of the founding mothers. She married a Petitpaw, or Petitpaw. Petitpaw, okay, and so that is my Mother of Acadia, and my mother's line actually originated in the Iberian Peninsula some 10,000 years ago, which was very interesting, I thought. Now, we don't know who Catherine Bougaret's mother was, it's never been proven, but the line does go back to the Iberian Peninsula. And you can test your mtDNA through family tree DNA. Yeah, that is where you would test that line. Oftentimes that also can help to narrow down when we're doing searches. Y DNA is only for men. It's exclusively passed from father to son. That is called the surname line, okay? If you're a Smith, your dad should have been a Smith and a Smith and a Smith. Now, there are breaks in the lines at times. It's called non-paternal events. You know, I have cousins who have tested who we know their dad was their dad and his dad was his dad, but where it should have been a line of Apshire, somewhere it goes into Baker's, okay? So, but oftentimes that does help. My little brother just did his, and you know, our line is Broussard as far back as we can tell. There are people who are encouraging, especially people from Louisiana and with Acadian descent, to do Y DNA testing because they'd like to set up, I guess, groups and know exactly where all these Acadian men's lines came from and what it's called the haplogroup is. So if you're a male and you haven't Y DNA tested, and you know, it's very interesting information to leave as a legacy to your family, I think, to Y DNA test. X DNA, again, determines the gender. A woman has 2 X's. You got one from your mother and one from your father. Now, my father had an X and a Y, so his X only came from his mother. You can actually build a family tree with X DNA and know where your matches, what possibilities your matches match you from following the X DNA. I found that fascinating. It took me a while to figure it out, but this class that I took taught me how to build this tree. So basically, you will only get your X's from certain ancestors, and if you match somebody on the X, they've got to match you on one of those ancestors. So sometimes if you're trying to find out where the connection is, X DNA can come in handy to help that out. It's a little bit complicated, but another interesting X DNA thing that I found out was that 2 sisters who share a father will always share a full X DNA. And so when I get, say, an adoptee, and I'm trying to find out if this adoptee has the same father or the same mother as another female, if they have the same father, they will share a complete full X DNA, and that also helps. Now, you can also share, I share a full X with my son, you can share a full X with the grandmother, but that's definitely one tool that has come in handy in cases that I've worked. So again, DNA inheritance. Your siblings will not have the same DNA as you. This is kind of color-coded to show you how you will end up with a variety of your ancestors here. It's called recombination. It happens before the sperm fertilizes the egg. We have no control over it. It just happens. And again, other than identical twins, your DNA will always be different than a sibling's is. And it's very interesting to see who my sister matches that I don't match. And I tell a story that I used to think that my sister got her hard-headedness from the Broussard side, but I know now she got it from the Dortez side. So I pick at her about that all the time, but my grandmother's probably rolling in her grave when I say that. But it's very interesting to see these facts. This is probably one of the things I've enjoyed doing the most, is seeing the differences. I have a first cousin once removed. My dad's first cousin's actually younger than I am. I match him at 732 centimorgans. My sister matches him at 523. That much is over a 200 centimorgan difference in our relationships with this one first cousin once removed. So that's how much DNA can vary. Now, we have 2 family trees. You have a genealogical ancestry family tree. Every one of you have probably built a family tree out as far as you can, okay? That is your genealogical tree. We also have a genetic tree, okay? That is our ancestors who have contributed DNA. I don't know if any of you on Ancestry, and sometimes you'll look at somebody's tree and they have a DNA symbol next to a person's name. They've actually been able to verify that they have inherited DNA from that ancestor. And the way we do that is, you know, if you're a DNA match to me, and we know that we share a second great-grandparent as a second cousin, well, and we know who those great-grandparents are, that proves that you and I have DNA from that grandparent because we share, okay? And that's basically how it's done. But you will not inherit DNA from all your ancestors, okay? And it trickles down very fast. One of the biggest questions that I hear, and you see on the internet everywhere, is, you know, well, my grandmother was a fourth of Cherokee Indian, you know, or my grandparent was all Indian. The way DNA is inherited, by the time it goes through 3 or 4 generations, if your grandmother was a full Cherokee Indian, then you should be 1/4 Cherokee Indian, 25%. But if your grandmother was an eighth of Cherokee Indian, you're going to have very little by the time it gets to you, chances are. Now, oftentimes I have a 4th great grandmother that we know her name, and through pictures, and we do have a little bit of Indian DNA, and we have been able to do some research and find where we definitely, she was, we don't know what type Indian she was, but her name was, so my 5th great grandmother, her name was Deleta Ciden, C-I-D-E-N. Can't be traced anywhere other than on one birth certificate out of San Gabriel, Louisiana. But pictures of her daughters and granddaughters, it's obvious that she did have Indian in her, and you know, there are a number of us who have a little bit left. But another thing is, these tests are based on databases. Typically, people of Native American descent don't DNA test. So they're not in the database to compare to. So that's another fact that you know, sometimes is the reason why it doesn't show up so much in your DNA, because they don't have databases to compare it to. So are you confused yet? So again, not everyone in your genealogical tree will be in your genetic tree, but everybody in your genetic tree will be in your genealogical tree. And why is that important? We have to follow the DNA. Like I said, a picture showed that she looked like Indian. But if there never was any of her descendants who had any Native American DNA, doesn't matter what the picture says. And I'm going to tell you, I would have bet $1 million on a picture of one of my adoptees for him and a man that we were certain was his father. I mean, I wish I could show you the picture. It still blows my mind. And they aren't even DNA connected at all. And they could have been twins. Amazing. And he was a family friend. The mother and this man, they were all in the radio and TV industry together, and we were just sure. But every time we looked at the DNA, this man's DNA, you know, his line never was anywhere around, and they aren't even related. So you cannot go by looks. When I was younger, I totally didn't look like my siblings. I thought, I mean, I remember thinking I was adopted, you know. I mean, it's like I didn't belong. Now, once my first son was born, he has my dad's feet. There's no doubt in my mind that my dad was my dad. But you cannot, at least in what I do, I absolutely cannot go by looks. You know, as I got older, I think I do look like my siblings. But in our younger years, I mean, I'm the only one with blue eyes, and I had blonde hair when I was young. They're all brown-eyed, brown hair. Well, my parents also had brown eyes, but my grandfather had the bluest eyes you've ever seen, and I got mine from him. So you have to follow the DNA when you're doing these kinds of searches. You can't go by looks. So this is very small. I hope your paper is better, but But basically, if you DNA test and you have a first cousin who DNA tests and doesn't show up as a match to you, they are not your first cousin, okay? 100% first cousins, second cousins, you will share DNA with first and second cousins. So that's through your great-grandparents, okay? You would have shared a set of great-grandparents with your second cousins. Now, it trickles down after that. Third cousins, again, on Ancestry, it's 98%. Family tree DNA, 90%. So chances are you're gonna share DNA. But, you know, when you get down to about fifth cousins on down, you may not share DNA, you know. Another thing I want to tell you, if you're, whatever test you're on, Ancestry and Family Tree DNA, they have no idea, unless it's a parent-child relationship or a full sibling, what the relationship is, okay? They don't know you and your family. So when it says close family, first cousin, or, you know, second cousin, that is a guess by them because of the amount of DNA you share with that person. It is a guess. They estimate the relationships. You know, people sometimes panic, and I did also. I saw on my uncle's test a close family through first cousin, and I thought, oh my gosh, he has a child that I don't know about when I started doing this. And it wasn't. It was a high first cousin match. So just know that those relationships are estimated, and I'll give you some tools in a minute to be able to figure out what those relationships are. A centimorgan. Okay, centimorgan is a rule of measure of DNA. A scientist by the last name of Morgan, I don't remember his first name, figured it out, okay? It's just like a ruler, okay? You share X amount of DNA in centimorgans with a parent all the way down to your 10th cousin. And it's not that simple though. So this is confusing, but this is actually a tool that we use called the Shared CM Project, okay? Blaine Bettinger has actually collected data from people like me and you on known relationships, okay? Which is important because while you can estimate relationships, if you actually have data of known relationships, it helps to narrow things down. Like my first cousin once removed that I matched so high, but my sister matches 200 less, I reported that because that's a range where this relationship can fall in, okay? And this is what this tells you, okay? Here's yourself. A child, to me, is going to average around 3,400 centimorgans. And you can actually go to this website here, and it's going to give you this nice little thing, and you can plug the number in, okay? So, and I apologize that it's hard to see this, but here it says 600 centimorgans. So a person at 600 centimorgans, it will highlight the possible relationships, and it will give you the percentage of what those relationships can be. So at 600, it could be a second great aunt or uncle, a half great aunt or uncle, a half first cousin, a first cousin once removed, a half great niece or nephew, or a great great niece or nephew. And that's only at the 75%. There are other percentages. So you see how it can get complicated when you do things like adoptee searches and you have these numbers, or you're trying to figure out what the relationships are. There's tons of possibilities when you get to 600 or below. Now, when you're up to a parent-child, you're going to match about 3,400 to 3,600 average. A full sibling is going to be around 2,600 average. A half sibling, aunt, uncle, niece or nephew, a double first cousin, or a grandparent, grandchild is going to be somewhere between 1,300 and 2,300. Average is about 1,800. I can tell you my half sibling, my aunt, uncle, and my my kids' grandparents all match really right about 1,800 centimorgans. So that one's pretty accurate. So this chart will help you to figure out kind of where the relationships are. And again, it becomes complicated past second cousins. And when you're good Cajuns, like a lot of us are, we have ancestors back in our tree that all come to the same people. My father-in-law and I actually matched 13 different ways, 5th to 7th cousins. I had a 2nd and 3rd great-grandmother who were Lapoints, which was a half relationship to his side. And my 2nd and 3rd great-grandmother Lapoints were sisters born 20 years apart. So that's just on the Lapointe side. We're connected on the Seymour side. His mama was a Seymour. We're connected on the Broussard side because his mama's mama was a Broussard. So I have had to learn to dig harder and deeper. My father-in-law's match to Janet Doe, who was the unidentified person in the Texas killing fields, the number was 212 centimorgans. If I was working with someone who wasn't Cajun, that's a good second cousin match. I look at great-grandparents. My father-in-law was actually her 3rd cousin once removed. You have to go back a full generation back to find the connections. So being Cajun has at times been a curse. I'm going to tell y'all there were times that I never wanted to see another Fontenot tape, manual, or swallow in my life because it was one of the most complicated trees I've ever built. And how many Joseph Fontenots there are on this earth, I will never know and I don't want to know. But it's the same with Broussard. Honestly, I don't mess with my Broussard line a whole lot because it's very difficult to separate a lot of things. But it's been a curse, but it's also been a great thing. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, have you heard about this case that there was a young lady that was killed, I think in Texas. They did DNA on her remains, and they found out she was an Acadian from the Broussard area.
Yes, ma'am, that's the case that I work.
Yes,
ma'am.
She worked on it.
She was actually a Gosselin.
Yeah, are her family still in Broussard?
She actually only has one son alive and one sister alive. The son is in Louisiana and the sister's in Texas.
Oh,
That's all the immediate family that she has, yes ma'am.
And they found it, because I saw it on TV and I didn't hear the end of the story.
Okay, yes ma'am, they were able to identify her. So, what can DNA matching do? It can give you the power to trace all of your ancestry lines. You have 22 pairs of chromosomes that are tested. These are compared to everyone else that's tested in the database. And the companies will give you a list of DNA matches. It's another thing I want to point out. People are paranoid that the government will have their DNA or the insurance companies will have their DNA. No one has your DNA code. We have a list of matches. That's it. When I get access to a law enforcement case, all I have is a list of DNA matches, names, just like you have when you get your results for your DNA test, okay? The DNA code, if it could even be deciphered, it's like writing code on a computer, okay? I don't know how you would actually, unless you're a lab that puts that information together, you know? I'm also going to tell you that if somebody wants your DNA, they're going to pick up your cup and they can test it and they can get it, okay? When you put your trash at the road, that's not your trash anymore. And it's how the mother submitted her DNA. But, you know, lots of cases that they've solved, including the Golden State Killer case, they followed him. He dropped a cup or a cigarette or whatever and they picked it up and they DNA tested it. I'm not a paranoid person. I'm not scared. I'm going to tell you, I think the government already knows the size underwear I wear. You know, and again, I mean.
And one thing, the Germans are very paranoid.
Very, very much so.
Very little DNA testing.
DNA testing, you know, and actually in France, you can't even do, I think, a paternity test right now.
In
you know?
Germany, you're not allowed there. Like they added
Yeah.
that the father there wanted to show that it was not his child.
No.
In fact, he got to jail.
Yeah.
Because he did that unlawful.
Yeah. So there are, there are a lot of companies, and again, I'm not that kind of person. Mine's, if they want to know, they're gonna know, and it's out there, and it doesn't bother me. But some people are private, and I've had to learn to respect their privacy. Doing these searches, the first few searches that I did, first of all, I didn't know many adopted people when I started doing this, and I got contacted by someone who was adopted but related to my daughter-in-law out of Virginia. And I couldn't imagine how somebody, I can't give up a puppy, much less a child, but I have learned that there are circumstances that we don't ever know about. And I've had to learn that, again, you don't know what those circumstances are, and I respect that. But I couldn't imagine that somebody wouldn't want to know that their child was at least alive and healthy, if that was the situation. But I've seen all kinds of cases. I've seen an adoptee case that ended up being a rape case. The mother was 12, the father was a 29-year-old, and he ended up going to jail for molesting someone else. I worked an incest case that the grandfather was the dad. But the majority of cases that I worked, I'm going to tell you, have been wonderful. And it may not be a parent that has accepted the adoptee, but there's somebody somewhere in the family that has. And to give closure to these people, or to give them a sense of knowing who they are, has been wonderful. I mean, I knew who I was, but I still wanted to know. I still had the urge to know. And, I think that part far outweighs the bad. But you have to go into it knowing, and I will always tell someone that I help that they have to be ready no matter what the results are. They have to be able to accept it. I hesitate. Most people I help are probably over 40 years old. I think it comes with the maturity of being that old and being able to handle any situation. I don't know that if my child was 15 years old and I didn't know his dad, that I would pursue that. But there are people who do. So it just depends on the individual and the family. So let's see, where was I? So again, the relationships are estimated. That's important, okay? We use those charts to determine the possible relationships. And then not only do we use those charts, but it's a puzzle. We put the puzzle together, because if somebody matches you at 600 and is a first cousin once removed, and then somebody matches you at 200 on the same line, that DNA has to actually fit in line. The numbers, it's a pattern, and it all has to fit together to make it work. So third-party tools such as GenMatch allow us to compare results tested at different companies, and I'll go over that in a minute, the GenMatch. So where did you test? Again, a little bit about each test. 23andMe, their big thing is health, okay? They do the health thing. I'm going to tell you, if you tested at Ancestry, you can upload, and it'll be on that paper that I gave you, to a site called Prometheus, and I think it's $12 now.
No, it's free right now.
It is free, okay,
Yeah.
free again.
Free right until December 31st.
It's on that second little paper that I gave you. Let me look at it to see. No, it's Prometheus is the one I'm telling you about.
The sheet you want,
Right here. Let's see.
Yes.
is this the one you want?
Do I have it on here, Carla?
She has. Yeah, wait.
Maybe. No, that's okay. I don't know if I have, it should be on.
It's free because My Heritage purchased it.
Okay, got it. Do I not, I don't have it on here, do I? It's
Promethese,
I think, huh?
One more time?
Hold on. Let me Google it. I don't want to tell y'all the wrong thing, and I don't have it on the paper. Because I think this is important. I think you guys should do this.
So you're saying that this is a free DNA test?
So it's free, yes, it is free. And what you do is, PROMETHEASE.com. So you would download your data from whatever test you took, which it'll tell you how to do it on this here, to your computer, and then you would form an account on Prometheus and upload your results. It will give you a detailed genetic report that you can actually print out and take to your doctor. I actually last week met a young lady who has a genetic disorder, and she could not afford to have all these expensive genetic testing done. Her doctor told her, take the 23andMe test, download it to Prometheus, and bring me the results. And that's what he used to diagnose her. I have MS. MS is mentioned 91 times in my report, okay? So it's great genetic information. Now, I'm gonna tell you, just because it says that you have a higher chance of getting Alzheimer's does not mean you're going to get Alzheimer's. So don't look at it and panic. It's made to be a guide to help. You know, macular degeneration causes blindness, okay? You can take medications now and vitamins to help that. So if your optometrist knows that you're predisposed to that, he can guide you to tell you to take the vitamins. So it's things like that that it helps with, and it's a really good thing.
Can I
Yes,
say
ma'am?
something about
Sure.
it? We have twins in the family. My daughter had twins, and there's a lot of twins because I track them. But my granddaughters, we uploaded them, and they have a lot of chance of having fraternal twins. Like, it's a lot of chance. So
You
we
see?
know, so that was a fun thing. So we know our granddaughters have twins.
Wow,
We'll be
that's pretty
expecting
amazing. I
So
didn't
it's fun
realize
stuff
that
like
that
that.
was even in there. I never looked to see.
And
if
the
I was
hair
gonna have
color,
twins.
hair color, eye color.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty cool. It really
Very
is.
generational.
It really is. So, you know, that's the big thing about 23andMe. Now, the FDA came down on them a few years back because they were really saying it was a health thing. But I tell you though, a lot of insurances now are paying you to test at 23andMe. I don't know about Medicare or whatever, but some insurance companies are actually paying to do it.
Yeah, there I'm afraid that they're gonna use that
Well,
to determine
if
the
they pay
insurance
for it,
rate.
they're gonna want to.
Insurance,
Yeah,
and,
exactly, yeah. Well,
so I would not
Yeah.
insurance.
yeah, definitely. So, MyHeritage, again, I've tested it at MyHeritage. MyHeritage, I think you can do a free upload. You can do a free upload. So if you tested at Ancestry, you can upload to MyHeritage for free. And you know, that actually helped me with an adoptee, or actually, Family Tree DNA. Here's Family Tree DNA. So, with Donna Gosselin-Prudhomme, all we had was GEDmatch. Now, I haven't talked about GEDmatch yet. So there's a couple of gentlemen who are genealogists, and they are computer whizzes, and they made this site called GEDmatch, GEDmatch.com. And the purpose of GEDmatch is I use it every day, and if I tested Ancestry and you tested 23andMe, we can both upload to GEDmatch, and if we're DNA matches, it shows us as matches on GEDmatch, okay? So you can test at any company and upload your results. GEDmatch is actually the site that law enforcement started using because they realized they could get this killer's DNA if that's what they were working on, or an unidentified person like Donna Prudhomme. We could upload the results to GEDmatch, look for matches, build a family tree, and find out who we're looking for. Now, Family Tree DNA also allows law enforcement use, which I think that's amazing. I'm going to tell you, it's my belief that if we can get rapists and killers off the street and help identify unidentified people, I think that's much more important than my rights on a piece of paper. That's my belief. I don't have a problem with it. I'm sorry if my first cousin kills somebody, he needs to be where he needs to be. That's my opinion. Not everybody believes that. Some people believe it's that law enforcement using these sites is an infringement on their privacy, but you do have the option to opt in to law enforcement use or opt out of it. The problem we've run into is when we had a over 2 million database to look for people on GEDmatch, we're now at about 600,000. So, because not everybody has opted into law enforcement use. So that's one of my beliefs, and I ask you, if you do and you really, consider it, really think about opting into law enforcement use, because you never know who you're gonna be helping out there. Ancestry, of course, is the first place that I tested at. Living DNA, this one is very interesting. It is based out of the British Isles, out of England. And I tested there because of the fact that my actual grandfather, we believe to be English or Scottish or Irish. Well, I actually have a high concentration of matches in the London area. And they are, again, based out of England, and so you're not going to get as many matches. But if you have Irish, Scottish, British DNA, I highly recommend you test with living DNA. It's very interesting. And I think it comes on sale for $45. So, and I think they're actually starting, or they're doing more matching, or they're making some changes that are going to be better. I know that. So, but I enjoyed that one very much. I enjoyed doing that. So that's one that I think. So this is where Shera is now. This actually, my business name now is The Gene Hunter, and coming in 2020, I will have a book that is going to talk about my DNA journey, and it's adoptees, it's law enforcement, it's personal information, and I'm very excited about where this journey has taken me, and there's not a day that goes by that I do not, and I get emotional when I think about it, because this has enriched my life unbelievably. And it has led me places that have got me out of my comfort zone that I never would have dreamed of. Up until about 3 or 4 years ago, my kids would ask me what did I want to be when I grow up? And I never could answer them. You know, it's like I didn't know really and truly what I wanted to be. I absolutely love my life. I've had a wonderful life. I love being a mother, a grandmother, and even though I complain about being a bookkeeper, working with my husband has been a blessing. It honestly has not been bad at all. But I now know that I want to be a genetic genealogist when I grow up. And so to be able to do what I love at the age that I am, I feel like I found a purpose in life, and I know little things that happen. It's amazing. I'm going to tell y'all one story, but that tell me every day that I am doing the right thing and in the right place. I have a friend named Dorothy who was adopted, and Dorothy and I have known each other. We've known each other a while. We both live in Bunkie, but she DNA tested about 1.5 years ago at the encouragement of a mutual friend of ours, and I've been helping her. And Dorothy has not been accepted by her maternal or paternal side. And as a matter of fact, we had a very hard time finding her maternal line, and I kept attributing it to the fact that it was an Hebert line in South Louisiana that's so Cajun that you can't separate it. But I had talked to some people through this process, and about in June, I guess, I really looked back at some of her matches, and I said, you know what? I know who Dorothy's mama is. It's that woman that I talked to 1 year ago that asked me all kind of questions and said she wanted to help, and it led nowhere. That's her mama. She asked me questions because she was curious about her daughter, but she never wanted to tell me that that was her daughter. So at the same time I come to this realization, and the DNA makes sense, we have another friend of ours, Brenda, and I try to get Dorothy to come with me to a conference in Houston, and Dorothy doesn't want to come. And, you know, it's like, is this her mama, isn't her mama? We're kind of weighing everything out, and Brenda and I go to Houston, and y'all don't think I'm crazy, but this is what happened. This is the story. So we check into the hotel, and when you check into a hotel, they give you the card, and normally they give you a little flyer with the password. And normally it's guest, or like this past weekend, Lapoint, and my room number, okay? The password at this really nice hotel in Houston is Dorothy, written in all capital letters with a silver ink pen. I still have that card. I have goosebumps when I think about it. Because to me, somebody's telling me, you got it right, you got it right. And I almost passed out when I saw that card. But, you know, it's little things like that that happen. And again, it may be, at this point, I don't believe that there's such things as circumstances anymore. I think everything happens for a reason. And I honestly believe I have been led to do, you know, what I'm doing, and God has a hand in this, and, you know, even the baby case that I'm working, or the other cases that I work. The connections are crazy. I mean, the way I ended up working this case was the guy who was in the newspaper that my friend sent me a picture of ends up being a guy from Kaplan who dated my sister. You know, I mean, just, you know, why? I don't know why, but that's how it happened. So it's pretty cool. It's been a great journey. Yes, ma'am.
You worked at the Innocence Project?
The Innocence Project? No, ma'am. I don't. Actually, there's a whole lot of projects out there. There's the Doe Project. You know, the way I got, you know, my adoptees pretty much are word of mouth referrals, either from somebody I've helped before or somebody who knows what I'm doing. Law enforcement, again, I got involved because my father-in-law was a match to Donna Prudhomme, and through that connection, I've made other connections. Now, I'm working on actually 3 other law enforcement cases right now. And one is a very high-profile case in the country, but I can't even say that I'm working it. But an interesting case I'm going to tell you guys about, y'all can actually Google. Her name is Princess Blue. Princess Blue was found in 1990 near Manville, Texas. And a gentleman stopped on the side of the road to relieve himself and saw, I believe, her skeleton was laying kind of inside of a tire. And she had rings on her fingers. And one of the rings was a 1975 Robert E. Lee High School graduation ring with a blue stone. You can trace that, right? Well, Balfour has no records. They've contacted everyone that they can from the graduating class, and they have yet to be able to identify her. There have been leads. They thought they knew who she was, but they have not. So Princess Blue right now, her DNA is being extracted, and that's one of the cases that I'm working. Now, if you like ghost stories, look up, I believe it's on, Google Princess Blue Ghost, and it's on a Brazoria County ghost website. And there are people who say they picked up this girl hitchhiking on the side of the road. She got in the car with them. They talked to her, and 2 minutes later, she's gone. So I was like, what in the world am I getting into? But it's all a fascinating and interesting story to me. I don't know where all this is going to lead. Hopefully, we'll be able to identify her. They think she was between 15 and 19 years old. The case in Jeanerette, again, I am not officially working that case. I helped to bring the case to light. I heard a wonderful gentleman a couple of weekends ago at a cold case conference in Mahmoud Hotel Kazan. He is a district judge, and a federal judge actually in Mississippi. And Judge Johnson says cold cases are solved by 2 ways. Somebody talks. Somebody who is there at the scene starts talking. Or people start stirring things up and bring the case back to light. That's exactly what happened in this baby Jeanerette case, okay? A friend of mine is a private investigator, and they unfortunately have a lot of murders in the New Iberia area, and he was trying to get work done and people weren't talking. So he has formed a group called Justice for Victims of Unsolved Murders and Missing Persons. And he started having little meetings and talking about things and trying to bring these cases to light. And that's how the baby case came up again. And we thought that the body would have to be exhumed for DNA. But Acadiana Crime Lab actually had preserved good DNA since 1994. And they were able to use the CODIS system and find a familial match. Now, the way the police system works is, normally it has to be an exact match, okay? If they arrest someone who gives their DNA, they run it through the system. If that person has already committed a rape and the DNA is in the system, it's going to show a match. There are 12 states now that do what's called familial DNA, which means it doesn't have to be an exact match. It could be a parent, a child, or a sibling match, okay? That's how baby Jane Doe's mother was found. Now, what I do is the genetic genealogy, investigative genetic genealogy. We don't know who her father is, okay? So if it's possible to get her DNA transformed into the type file that we need, to do genealogy work, which is the same kind of file as you would get on Ancestry or any of those others. We can upload it to GEDmatch, we can upload it to Family Tree DNA, we can look at matches and try to build a family tree and find out who the father is, okay? Now, I don't know with that case if that's what they're gonna do or not, but that's how this process works.
Did you work the case in Washington? You know, the case where the lady was found in the ditch?
No, ma'am. No,
Well,
ma'am.
they, according to the newspaper, that's how they found out who she was.
Yes, ma'am. It's amazing how many cases have been solved using this. It really is. And again, you know, it's been, there's a lot that's gonna be happening in the next year. There has to be standards and there has to be rules. This is a new field, okay? Things are changing. Right now, there's no certification for investigative genetic genealogists, okay? It basically goes by if you've had law enforcement experience before, you know, and searching adoptees, and it goes by experience. I'm trying to keep up on my education. That's why I'm taking the classes that I'm taking, because there is going to be a time, like everything else, where it's going to be controlled, and we need standards. We do definitely, you know, need those kinds of things. So a lot is going to be happening. Things have been hindered. There's a group that has been formed, and Anne Marie Schubert, who is the prosecutor on the Golden State Killer case, actually is the chairwoman of this committee or this group, and it's called Institute for DNA Justice. And they are working to make sure that genetic genealogy can continue to be used to help law enforcement. Because this is amazing. I mean, think about it. If we can take rapists off the streets, I mean, someone who's a sexual predator will always be a sexual predator. But if we can actually do that, I mean, think about a criminal. They know they're going to be caught. I firmly believe that there are murderers out there thinking, when's it going to happen? You know, a couple of cases has happened. The guy said, I was waiting for you to knock on my door, okay? Because with this, there's no doubt. Now, I'm going to tell you, the work that I do, I am not going to put someone behind bars. I will give a lead to a police department if that's what I'm doing, and then it's up to them to prove that information is correct. So, you know, if you think, oh goodness, they're going to put the wrong person in jail, they've been putting the wrong people in jail. This is letting those people out now, which I think is amazing. I can't imagine something worse. You know, going to jail for 20 years for something you did not commit. So really consider, you know, opting into law enforcement use, because it's doing amazing things. It really is doing amazing things. So, and I firmly believe that it's doing much more good than it's doing harm to anyone. You know, I mean, I don't know one person whose privacy has actually destroyed their lives. I don't think because their cousin got arrested because they were a murderer. You know, I don't know that, so.
So DNA testing results go to law enforcement?
Well, no ma'am. No ma'am, not at all, okay? DNA testing results are on the company that you DNA test with, okay? If you choose to upload your results to GEDmatch, and you choose to opt into law enforcement, when I have a case that I'm gonna work, and I have this, say, a DNA of a criminal or an unidentified person, I will upload those results to GEDmatch also. And the only matches that I'm going to see to that person are the people who have opted in, okay? So if you don't opt in, law enforcement will never see your kid.
I was just wondering how that works.
How it works?
No, I was just wondering.
Okay, yeah, okay. So you have to opt in for them to be able to see it. Now, in the past, you didn't. When the FBI is the one who started doing this, they were actually uploading, and people didn't know they were, okay? Just like I upload my adoptees, they were uploading DNA. But now they have to do it, okay? Now I'm going to tell you, they also could at any time get a subpoena and subpoena the records, okay? So they could go to Ancestry and say, here's a subpoena, and we want you to run this and see who the matches are. Now Ancestry says they don't do that, But I'm gonna tell you, if
They the FBI.
they're the FBI,
Sorry.
they're gonna do it. If they wanna do it, they're gonna do it, okay? So, I mean, I don't see a problem with it, but that's me. And I encourage people to do it because it does help people, so.
I have nothing to lose.
You know, I honestly don't have anything to hide. Like I said, they already know my underwear size, so it doesn't bother me. Yes, ma'am.
So is GEDmatch the best way to find the greatest number of matches?
If you're only gonna test at one company, then yes, it is. Okay, it is. I think, you know, me testing at all of them, of course, mine is definitely everywhere, but the thing about GEDmatch is people have to upload, so you'll only find them if they've actually uploaded to GEDmatch.
I found a brother with my heritage. Yeah, he lives in Norway.
Norway, wow.
Yeah, my father was in the service in France in the 60s.
So roughly how big is their database? Like you tossed out some numbers earlier.
GEDmatch, I wanna say, is over 2 million.
Wow.
Over 2 million. Now, you will only see 2,000 matches. You see your top 2,000 matches. But, yeah, I mean, it definitely, it's a wonderful tool, absolutely wonderful tool. There's all kind of fun things you can do on GEDmatch. One thing is, are your parents related? There's a tool that says, are your parents related?
And there's a lot of other stuff
There's
you can do.
color of your eyes, it'll predict the color of your eyes, and you look at it and you see if they actually got it right or not. There's a lot of ethnicity,
Yeah, there's
what
a
do they
lot of
call
other
them?
ethnicities,
Admixtures,
admixtures
you
can
know,
look at.
yeah, so
Other
it,
than what ancestry.
Ancestry gives you, so it's more detailed, and there's tutorials that'll help you, you know, learn. YouTube, I mean, you can YouTube any of this stuff now, it's amazing. So, one second, somebody,
I was just gonna say, the tools with GEDmatch are very, very good, because you can, take somebody's kit, compare it to yours, and see who you have common matches.
exactly, yeah, definitely, yes ma'am.
I did mine, I uploaded to GEDmatch, and I did the Are Your Parents Related, because I'm looking for my biological father.
Okay,
And it does say that they're related at the second cousin level.
second cousin.
Wow.
Okay, so, we need to talk, just because I don't, you gotta kind of watch what that level thing is on GEDmatch.
Yeah.
Okay, because it
I have
might
no-
be generations instead of second cousins.
I have no doubt they probably were related though
Okay.
somehow.
Yeah. That, I mean, it's common. I mean, both sets of my grandparents were related to each other, you know,
My parents were related.
no, yeah.
It's just,
Now, mine says my parents aren't related, but
It's-
my dad's parents were related to each other, and my grandparents were related to each other, so, my mom's parents.
in
So-
my search,
And it's
it's-
common in this area. I mean, first of all, you know, sometimes I'm like, couldn't they at least have crossed the parish line? You know?
true,
Yeah,
that's
but at
the,
that time, sometimes, who did you meet? At funerals and weddings.
100%,
So
100%.
it's always
Who
related.
Cherise?
Family reunion.
Yes, in fact, yeah, exactly. And how did they travel? Horses, buggies.
They didn't
you
go
know?
far.
And when you live in Cow Island, Louisiana, you can't go very far anyway, so
Or
that's,
someone's brother
Married.
someone married a woman who
Uh-huh.
had 3 sisters.
Mhm.
He's got 3 brothers.
and they all married
And
each
they all
other.
intermarried.
Yeah. And, yeah, and so you have double cousins all over. Like, actually, the first cousin ones removed that I was telling you about, my grandfather and his dad were brothers. My grandmother and his mother were first cousins. So, you know, it's a double relationship there too, so,
It's like step brothers
Yes.
married their
Stepsisters,
stepsisters.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
no
right.
genetic relationship.
Correct, but it, yeah, and my husband's side of the family, his great-grandfather, let's see, he divorced his first wife, believe it or not, in like the 1890s, had 7 kids, and actually, his first cousin died, and then he married his first cousin's wife, who had 6 kids, and then together they had 7 more kids, so try to separate that family, it gets a little bit complicated, so, yeah, but, and again, the relationships are estimated, you know, and just like on GEDmatch, there's actually a little chart that we use that I can get to you if you want, showing what the actual generations, because you might be related to somebody 3.2 generations, what in the world's 3.2 generations, and it'll give you the relationships and stuff like that, so, anyway. Any other questions about DNA or?
Let me ask you,
Sure.
are you familiar with CRI Genetics out of California, Mr. Alexi?
So actually, I'm not, but I have kind of been reading a little bit about that.
Because they test in so many different ways.
Exactly, and that's probably the next one that I'm gonna do, okay, just because.
All right, well, let me ask you this. By the way, when you said Lapointe, when you were talking about, one time you said the word Mississippi.
Yes, ma'am.
That's where my Lapointe was.
Yes, ma'am, there's a
And
point
one of them
home, I
was
believe,
known
somewhere
as-
near Biloxi.
And there was some title that went it, and it sounded like, and so they called him the mosquito.
Oh, okay,
All
oh,
right, so we're gonna look into that.
okay.
Let me ask you this.
Sure.
Shera. If we could get you to come sometime next year during our 300th anniversary year, you know, and if some of us brought our DNA and we could sort of compare.
Sure.
here with-
Um,
Wouldn't that be interesting?
You know, I don't mind that at all. I do that in Abbeville a lot, where people bring their laptops. And, you know, sometimes the problem is, again, some people have tested at Ancestry, some people have tested different. So I used to give talks, you know, just using Ancestry, but it just makes it too difficult. But I don't mind doing that at all. I think it's fun. I enjoy it, and I don't mind, you know, doing hands-on.
Well, this
with
area
that.
is so much intermarried and
Yes, ma'am.
interconnected and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You know, if you've got one Acadian ancestor, you got a million of them.
Yeah.
And if you go back, when I think of some families, the three Lavernes, and somebody goes back to all three of them, and then two of the children married.
Yeah.
And then the next generation, two of the
Yeah.
children married. So, you know, they go back like 9 times just to.
Yeah. We
those
just
three
had a
kids.
huge Simon reunion in Rain, Jean-Baptiste Simon. I descend from 5 of his kids, and I said, where's the tie-dye shirts? Because they, depending on the line, they had the color. Well,
You wanted all of them.
I wanted all of them. I
She's
got a
gonna be a
red shirt,
stripe.
because that was the closest one, but I really should have a tie-dye
Did they
shirt.
call you a zebra? 'Cause you had
Yeah,
so many
exactly,
stripes?
so, but, and that's how it is if you're
Well,
from this
I would
area.
think
so.
that it might be interesting if some of us would come, we'd find, even though we might not know it, that we're kin to each
Yeah.
other from that standpoint, not from the genetic side, but from the DNA side.
Yes, ma'am.
One thing that you brought up, and if I could comment on, have you noticed how much in the news these days, somebody has been sentenced to be executed, and then they're holding it because there's a possibility that somebody made a mistake. Sometime over-anxious
I have an
police,
amazing story I can tell
sometimes,
you about that.
the police, they manufactured,
Mhm.
not many do that. But all it takes is one snake in the grass to do something to win a case. Or in one case, somebody holds back information or something. And right now, it seems in the last 2 weeks, I must have read about 10 or 11 different things where even on the day of an execution, a judge stopped it
Stops
because
it, yeah.
there's a, and that would be the beauty of sharing
Exactly.
the DNA and making it available.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. There's actually, and this destroys me when I think about it. The gentleman was executed in Texas for setting fire to his home and killing his 3 children. It's been proven that he did not, that the accelerant they found actually was something in the carpet. And,
It's
he was
been
killed.
dozens of those
He was
cases that
killed.
they found.
Texas is now leading the field in fire forensics because, and we had a forensics expert speak to us the other day. Amazingly, she says, of the 7 different things that are used in prosecutions, fire forensics, bite marks, and I don't even remember, fingerprinting, DNA is the absolute only one that is scientifically proven. All these other things that they use to put criminals behind bars have never been scientifically proven to be correct. One man actually got sent to prison because of a bite in a bologna sandwich that they said was his bite mark on someone. I mean, think about it. You bite somebody, you pull, I mean, that blows my mind, but it actually has been done in the past. So again, I think this is huge. What this can do for the future, I think it can stop criminals. I think it can release the criminals, the people who are there who aren't criminals, you know. And again, I just can't imagine someone spending 20 years behind bars that didn't do it.
Horrible. Now, this is a personal thing. I could not pull the switch to execute someone, so I can't vote for someone. In other words, I don't support killing someone because there's always a chance
That
there's a mistake being made. And these days, DNA is giving us a way of avoiding that horrible mistake of executing somebody who's
Who is
not.
innocent, yeah. I mean, a father of 3 accused of
Oh, it's
burning.
heartbreaking since the 90s, because we
Yeah.
started back, I can
Right.
remember this in the early 90s, that we now can document dozens of people, mostly men, who have been executed, that afterwards evidence was found, or it was found that they had the evidence, but it became evident too late
Yeah.
and all that.
So it is amazing, it's a wonderful thing, and again, I'm amazed at how much it's changed since just, on the way over here, I was actually listening to a podcast that was 3 years old. If you guys want to learn about DNA, I should have mentioned this also, there's a book, Family Tree DNA Guide, Family Tree's Guide to Genetic Genealogy by Blaine Bettinger, Bettinger. There's the second edition that's out.
Okay, we need to get a copy of that and
Yes,
send it out
if you-
in our notice, Jurgen.
You also need to have it here at the library if you don't have it.
We're gonna get it.
Okay, it's an awesome book, I can give you the link
All
to
right,
it. So
well,
so
let's be sure we
basically,
get that, and if you're registered with us, it'll be in the memo
also,
that
you
goes
can
out.
get it, I know you can get it on Amazon, I think it's $16.95 now or something. Also, that is the book, when I just took that online college course, that is the textbook that we use. So
That was
that is
my next
the
question.
DNA Bible. That is the
Any
DNA
books that you
Bible.
would recommend?
Yes, ma'am,
If
okay.
you would be so kind as
I will.
to send us a list.
A list
if
of
you
them.
don't
Okay.
want to-
Yeah.
But if you could send us something, I promise you,
send
we'll
me-
order those books and have them here for you, because
I
I
will,
think
I'll send it to you.
Or
that
message.
it would be
Okay,
a
okay,
great
sure,
help.
not a problem, not a problem, so.
All right, any other questions that you
Any
have
other
for
questions?
us?
Yeah,
This
I'm
is
getting
your
ready
chance.
to, I'm creating a book on both my parents' side.
You're the one who asked the question
Well-
in the group, right, about should I write about DNA in my book?
Yeah, should,
Okay.
if I would, I mean, would my own DNA be of value to be put in a book on my old photos / genealogy book for my Bertrand and Estelle
You know,
ancestors?
I 100% believe it would, because, you know, somebody's reading your book that's related to you, and you have proof, again, that you have DNA on that line, that's proof that that line was true. I come across people who have built these massive trees, and when I'm searching for an adoptee, I'm looking for the shared ancestors. And I look, and the names just absolutely are different, and there's nothing that matches. That means that that person who has that family tree, who thinks that that's their family, there's a break somewhere in that tree. So if you can prove that you have those DNA connections to your Bertrand line, because you have cousins that go all the way back on that Bertrand line, I think that's a wonderful thing. I definitely do.
And I would need to know which company to go with, which type of test to take, so we can,
Right, yeah.
Help me with
yeah, to do it. So, when you test at Ancestry, they'll give you, what is it called, Carl? When it shows your second great grandparents and your third great grandparents, the shared ancestors?
Oh,
No,
yes.
it's,
When they do their DNA test?
No, the trees connect.
They have a common ancestor.
Common ancestors?
Yeah.
Oh, your common ancestor.
Your common ancestors, yeah.
There
So,
is a common
it would
ancestor.
show you that. It would show you all that
Yeah.
information.
so you're saying to test with Ancestry.com?
I would, in my opinion, I would tell you that you need to do an autosomal DNA test with Ancestry.
Yeah.
Then I think you need to do a Y DNA and an mtDNA with family tree DNA.
Okay.
Okay?
You're gonna give us a note to that, again, we can send that out?
Yes. Now, you know, if
That
you
would
want
be
to prove,
valuable.
if you want to prove what you're doing, you know, you want to prove your Bertrand line goes all the way back Bertrands. You want to look at your mother's line, that's the mtDNA, okay? And then autosomal will prove which of your ancestors you share DNA with, okay? And, I mean, it would involve some research and some work, you know, to prove that, but there are also probably other people, especially on the Bertrand line, I think, who have done some research, and so it definitely would help. And I think if you're writing a book to be able to prove that you have those connections, just like my Asher line, we know now we have those DNA connections,
Now, I have only one sibling, it's my sister.
okay?
Should she be tested to help with the Bertrand, Stelly?
I 100% would test her, yes.
And
yeah.
which test would that
If
involve?
you're gonna test at Ancestry, I would test her at Ancestry, okay?
And which test would it be?
Just the regular Ancestry autosomal
The
DNA
autosomal?
test.
But
Yeah, okay.
don't the females have to have their own special?
Well, no, but you can do mtDNA too. So, because you can test, you have the same mother, right,
Yeah.
and the same father. She
Right.
can't test her Y DNA, so you would test your Y DNA. The thing is, with family tree DNA, if you've already tested your Y DNA, it would be cheaper for you to also test your mtDNA than for her to do a whole separate test, because it's an add-on to the test.
All right.
Okay? But you could test her on her, you know, but your results and her results for mtDNA, having the same mother, would be the same for mtDNA.
Okay,
For autosomal DNA, you'll have different matches, okay?
all right.
So it's a different type DNA.
Did I
Okay.
understand it right, that it's on family tree DNA, if you tested there already for the Y, which I did, that I really don't have to
You don't have to swab again. You can just contact them and say, I want to upgrade to mtDNA, because they keep your
That's what
sample.
I thought.
They keep your sample, yeah. they
Let
do.
me ask you this, Shera.
Yes, ma'am.
If some of us would, in our clipping file family group, which we're trying to develop, we should have been doing it a long time ago, but it was not done. Would you suggest that we would contribute the map of our genes to any kind of file like that to have in our genealogy collection?
I mean, you know, if
Would it
you,
help anyone?
I mean, I think leaving DNA evidence is a legacy that is amazing. I would give anything to have my grandparents' DNAs,
So
DNA.
if-
So this is one thing this is what I suggest. You can leave a beneficiary for your DNA, okay? There are forms that you can do, okay? If you've DNA tested, I need to get that form to you guys. And you need to leave those results to someone in your family, okay? Because once you're gone, it's gone,
Yes.
okay? And so I would definitely do that, okay? Now, if you got so much into it that you built a genetic tree, like your genealogy tree, which means you figured out which ancestors you shared DNA with, 100% I would leave that here for people to see, because it's a pretty amazing thing. But it's very complicated to do, you know. But, you know, I wouldn't leave my DNA results really, you know, within here. I mean, first of all, you don't want to share all those names with other people. You know, it's why I don't necessarily like to pull up my ancestry results here, because it shows people who I'm matched to.
So you would suggest though that each of us, if we have it, to name someone.
To be in charge
To be-
and give your passwords to somebody, you know, or put it in a safety deposit box.
So your family would,
So your family.
that's important,
You know,
that knowledge
yes,
is that we.
definitely.
it's
And your records too. You know, if you've been doing genealogy research for years, some people are like, oh, well, nobody in my family wants it. There's somebody in this group who would be interested in it, you know, so it's something to think about, because things happen to us, you know.
Well, in this
you
area,
know.
there's been so much intermarriage for so many generations here.
So it
that
definitely can, you
Even
know,
though
can
I
help
have
other
no
people.
children to
Right.
leave my DNA to and all of that,
You might have a
as I
niece or
go back
somebody
in
that you could.
It would help, it's
Correct.
helped a lot of people because I have gone back
Right,
a
definitely.
distance on a number of lines.
Correct. So,
Any other questions? I mean, I'm learning a lot today, and I thought I knew a lot about DNA. I used to give talks on DNA. Boy, am I behind time. I can't tell you how much,
Well, thank you.
Thank
I
you.
really enjoyed it. I really
this
enjoyed
has
it.
been
Now,
a
I want
very,
to say something about FTDNA.
Yes, ma'am.
My uncle did his FTDNA test, the Y-DNA for the Chapman line,
Mhm.
and we received back that the guy who runs the project for the Chapman said we had a unique Chapman line,
Okay,
unlike any other
Any
Chapman
other?
line he had ever seen
That's
across
amazing.
the nation.
awesome.
We cannot identify with any other Chapman
Well,
across the nation.
then you need to test more people in this area.
Because when they took the surnames,
Uh-huh.
he thinks that one guy took the Cool Dre line and we took the Chapman line
Amazing,
when they took surnames.
amazing.
Because
Now,
we do
But
match,
you're the same people then.
but we're the same people.
Yeah.
remember when people came through
Yes.
Ellis Island and other places, that sometimes they were assigned
Names,
new
yeah.
names?
Oh, no, we were here long
No,
before
no,
that.
but I'm trying to
Yes.
say that
I understand.
many
Yes.
people
Yes.
have
Yeah,
names
yeah.
that
We have an
it's
issue
not
with.
their heritage.
With the
Right.
Lapoints, I tested my husband at 67, and there's only one other, I tested him first at the Y37, there are different levels. And he had 3 matches. One was to a Lapoint, and one, the last name was Drapeau,
Yes, I'm
D-R-A-P-E-A-U,
very
okay?
familiar with that.
And this Drapeau's trying to figure out, is he a Lapointe or is he a Drapeau? So he had tested at 67, so I upgraded my husband's to help them. And we both match at 67, so now we really don't know if the line goes back to Lapointes or Drapeaus or, you know, so we need other people to test to try to be able to help, but.
The guy that runs the project told me that it was no use I tested 67 because
Okay.
he's seen that it was.
That it was,
They took
okay,
the
yeah,
two
they know more
surnames.
than, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
he
pretty
knew more than what.
complicated. Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Because I
That
said,
is
yes,
pretty-
because I asked him, should I upgrade? He said, oh, no,
Yeah.
I can see
In
it.
that same frame
So-
of thought,
That was
in
interesting.
England, they were analyzing the Iceman that was found in the Alps 5,000 years old. And the DNA matched somebody's DNA in that lab.
Wow.
Imagine.
Wow, that gives me goosebumps.
I'm thinking
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
I mean, here is a technician here, and they're doing this 5,000-year-old man who's just appeared because of the ice giving
Yeah.
away. And that person who worked there, that DNA matched
Yeah.
that one that was found in the Alps.
Yeah. You know, I was telling y'all about Dorothy. Dorothy was born in New Orleans, moved to Bunkie when she was 11 years old. Didn't think she had a French bone in her body. And I got her to test at Ancestry, and I'm sitting there looking at her test. And here's my uncle, a DNA match to Dorothy. Like, what are the chances? I mean, she's born in New Orleans, adopted, moves to Bunkie. I'm from Kaplan, I moved to Bunkie. We meet each other there, and she's a DNA match to both my husband and myself because it's on the Dortez line, you know, and it's like, wow, whoever would have thought, you know, so.
It's exciting.
It is, it's exciting and amazing and, you know, amazing where you'll find the connections. I mean, I've been the first person an adoptee from Canada, the first biologically related person she ever spoke to, you know? I mean, to me, that's amazing. Can you imagine being the first person that this adoptee ever talked to? Blows my mind.
Well, the other amazing thing is this Oak Island
Yeah.
of Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
It looks like the Vikings were here
yeah,
hundreds of years before,
yeah,
and maybe others before that.
yeah.
All right. I'll be in touch with you.
Okay,
And if you'll come back,
sure, anytime.
you all would be interested in coming with your DNA, and we can see how many of us
Definitely.
can, you know, really, because we already know that for a lot of us, if we go back, we're kin to half of the room at least.
If anybody wants to hear more on the cold cases that I'm working on, tomorrow I'm speaking at 2 o'clock at the Alexandria Genealogical Society at the Genealogical Library there in Alexandria, and it is open to anybody. if anybody wants to attend that.
And
2 o'clock tomorrow,
and you're gonna be speaking on what case?
on the cold cases.
Oh,
The
okay.
cold cases that are
What physical address?
Good question.
I used to know it because we used to go up there.
I spoke there last month on my dad's work photos book.
I missed it.
Boy, were we lucky to get her to come in, because she
Sure,
filled in
want
for
to Thank you
somebody.
for coming. That-
Can't
that's,
go well last minute.
Really,
But we'll work it in for next year. By the way, let me see the hands again of those of you who've done some DNA testing.
Everybody
Almost
but me.
everybody. All right.
It's
I'm gonna-
503 Washington Street. It's a super library. I didn't even know it existed. But it's cool. They have tons of genealogical information there. It's
Interesting.
actually the biggest genealogical library, I think, between Mississippi and Houston, if I remember right. So,
So that's open to anyone, right?
yes, ma'am, it's an open,
The lady that used to be there was delightful when we used to go. We used to go as an organization.
okay. I know Mr. Mike Wynn and
Now,
and
Michael
Pat
Wynn, you
Boone.
know, is.
Has Mike, did Mike speak here? Or he's a
My-
member?
About 2 months ago.
My grandparents,
Okay.
the Whips were here.
Oh, okay.
and,
Oh, right, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, his mother grew up here.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions now that you'd like to ask? This is your chance. I want to thank you for coming.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys very much.
I want to remind y'all that we have some of these brochures. The cemetery tours are today and tomorrow and next week on Saturday and Sunday. And on Sunday afternoon, there's one even for handicap. Of course, other people can go with it, but it's very nice. But if you've ever gone on one of these cemetery tours, they're very interesting. Thank you
thank
for
you so
coming.
much.